Hi, everyone, and good evening. This is Chuck Taft coming to you from the snowy confines of my basement. I've spent a good deal of today outside doing a little snow blowing, and now I'm excited to talk to you about one of my favorite things I get to talk about, and that is our Washington, D.C. trip. If you would, could somebody, or as many people as possible, pop into the public chat on the bottom there and let me know that you can hear my voice. Woohoo! All right. Thanks to all of you. That's great that you can hear me. What I hope to do today is what I was going to do in person. This might even be better because you can sit back and relax and, not have to sit in one of those chairs at Mellows and hike yourself out to USM. But I want to give you an overview of our upcoming 2019 USM 8th grade Washington, D.C. trip. All right. It is less than 20 weeks away, I believe. So I'm getting excited. Of course, our faculty is getting excited. My goal is to go over a little bit about some of the nuts and bolts of who's going on the trip and who we travel with. Give you a flyby itinerary of the trip, and then I'm going to try to answer all of your questions before you ask them. That's what I try to do in school too. But then I force your kids to ask questions. But in that chat at the very end, it'll kind of be an open question time if you have anything that you want to ask publicly, and of course, if there's anything you want to ask specifically to me about anything about your young historical tourist, please do that with an email, phone call, pop into school, whatever. My goal, of course, is to make this the best possible learning and enjoyable experience for our young historians. Sound good? All right. I always start off with our heroes. We have a lot of DC heroes here. These are 6 teachers that are going to DC this year that are giving up, I think the estimate is 108 or something hours out of their lives and their time to hang out with our kids. At the top, we've got Jason Strains, 8th grade math. Dr. Walzak at the 12 o'clock spot right there, my promance, my partner in crime, 8th grade English for American Studies. In the top right is Matt Flack. He is upper school English, and his daughter is Lucy, in case you don't know that. I'm excited to have Matt come along as an upper school presence. It's going to be great that he's going to be able to get to know a lot of the kids ahead of time and spend some time with us. Bottom right, we've got the awesome Christy Hall, our 8th grade PE for the girls. Bottom center there at the 6 o'clock, Todd Schlenker, 8th grade and 5th and 6th grade Spanish. And of course, on the bottom left, we have Nicoletta Torre, our 8th grade science teacher. We have 4 of our advisors are going, including me, so 5. And it's just a great group of people. And I call them our heroes because of what they're going to do for your kids to make this an awesome trip. Now, my personal hero here is the amazing Francine Eppelsheimer. Francine is unable to come with us this year. She has an awesome wedding that she's going to in France, a family wedding, and I'm so happy that she's getting to go to that. However, this trip would not be possible without Francine. I'll say it to anybody and everybody. Francine set the standard for this trip before I got to university school 22 years ago. When I sort of took the mouth of the trip over, Francine is still the brains behind it. She handles the most important factor in the whole trip, and that's the cash. So without Francine's help, this trip would not happen. So I bring this up just to make sure that your kids know this, that there's a lot of moving pieces that go into this trip besides just the guy with the mouth, and that all these people deserve big thank yous come May 3rd when we get back to DC. Okie doke. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about World Strides. World Strides is our tour provider. They have been around for a long time. They were Lakeland Tours, and to make a short story shorter, my 8th grade trip when I was in 8th grade in beautiful Troy, Michigan, I went with Lakeland Tours. Lakeland Tours became World Strides, and Lakeland Tours, my trip to Washington D.C. pretty much was the starting point of me becoming an 8th grade history teacher. So you can either love World Strides and Lakeland Tours, because that's why I teach 8th grade, or you can hate them. But either way, I've been with this company since I was 14 years old, believe it or not. This is the 19th time we've used World Strides on our trip. It might be the 20th. I got to check my math. No, I think it's the 19th time. It's also used by a lot of local schools, Whitefish Bay, Shorewood, Lakeshore. I've got friends in Madison that use them. Tons of people in Chicago area schools use World Strides as well. The number one thing about World Strides is the safety that they provide. They have incredible ground service. They have great personal attention to University School. Lori Stribling is our account representative, and her assistant Amanda. They bend over backwards for us, and I love them most of all because they're so flexible. They're flexible during the entire planning process. They're flexible when we're in DC. They're flexible after we're in DC. Now, will tell you that World Strides does come with a price, and I've done the comparison shopping over the last couple years, and I'll continue to do so ever so often. World Strides is about 4 to 5% higher than the big ones: Bright Spark Travel, School Tours of America, and Smithsonian Tours. And also, I know very well that the price that you are paying and your child is paying to go on this trip, we could have a really good trip for people. Like my entire 5-person family could probably get out to DC and back and have a pretty good trip for almost that same price. But World Strides offers a few things that we can't put into our consideration when we're thinking about a family or an individual trip. The first thing is their ground transportation is beyond reproach. It's incredible. It's the bus transportation. It's the best way to see Washington, D.C. Second, we're dealing with, Mr. Markweld would like this, but almost reverse economies of scale. I can get a pretty cheap ticket for a flight for one person. I can get pretty decent tickets, flight tickets for 4 people. I can get a pretty decent hotel, 1 or 2 rooms. When we're dealing with a group of 95 to 100 people, it's almost sometimes when it comes to businesses, the economics go in reverse. And if we want to get out there, the airlines have us by their, have us in the palm of their hand, and so do the hotels. So to kind of sell you on World Strides one last time, I want to give you 3 quick stories. Some parents who have had trips with World Strides before, or had historical tourists before, know these stories, but one of them deals with the reason we went with World Strides in the first place. It was the trip of 2000, my 3rd year at University School. And by the 3rd day of our trip, the Thursday, we had approximately 65% of our kids having some sort of flu, something. We don't know exactly what it was. It wasn't food poisoning, but and I think parents, you'll understand where I'm coming from this. It was coming out of both ends, and it was a disaster, and we had no ground support whatsoever. So that trip and that experience is something that made us go with a company. We couldn't do this by ourselves, and we need that ground support for that company. So that's one story about why we went with World Strides, because we went with the world leader. Their gig is 8th grade DC. Then a few years ago, we had a young tourist who came down with an asthma attack. His asthma got really, really bad. He and his parents did not fill out the medical forms that he had asthma. He did not bring an inhaler. We could not give him another inhaler because of, medical laws and also common sense. So he ended up going to the emergency room. My colleague took him overnight to the emergency room on Thursday night, stayed with him all day on Friday, and World Strides then we contacted his parents. World Strides flew in his mom. They stayed in, she stayed in Washington, D.C. They missed the flight back on Friday. They didn't come back till Sunday, his mom and the student. And World Strides took care of everything, and nobody ever saw a bill. So while that's one story, imagine if it was your kid. That's the way I always put it. And World Strides handled that without, just like it was something that they do, because that's their gig. And then some of you know this, of course, a couple years ago, we had a little issue with a smoke alarm, which was went off because there was some pipes that broke about 4 stories above us. And then this is what our hotel looked like. I'm hoping that it works over the stream. If you can see this, we had most of our rooms were flooded out. It was pretty, it was kind of, I don't know, kind of exciting. It was the first night that we were there. And so what happened is that we ended up hanging out at about 1, 2, 3 a.m. We hung out in a big ballroom. World Strides got us this big ballroom, got us all in there. We pulled all of our luggage out there. And by about 3 o'clock, we had to make the decision, with their help, that the girls were going to double up and bunk up, and the boys were all going to sleep in that room right there on the floor, and a couple rollaways, which they really, really liked. It was kind of a great story. World Strides helped us manage this whole thing, helped us get in hotel rooms for the next 3 nights, because almost all of our rooms were unusable in one part of the hotel. But the most important thing is the hotel wanted to give the kids back $49 for the being displaced. World Strides actually negotiated within their company to give everybody back $250. So while it might not be exactly what the economics was, the fact that they went to bat for us and really really focus on their customers and taking care of us, that's one of the reasons why they're really, really tough for me to leave. So that was the morning after. It was tons of fun. Look at that. And then finally, what World Strides gives me, this is just from my selfish perspective, is 2 of the best guys that I have met in my entire life. On the right side of that picture is Tyrone Brown, and on the left is Mike Myrick. These 2 gentlemen have been our bus drivers for the last few years together. Tyrone has been our bus driver probably, I think, 14 out of the 19 years we've been with World Strides. I consider both of these men great friends. Tyrone was the first person to text me on my birthday a couple weeks ago. But these guys make the trip, and they only drive for World Strides. They work for Quality Tours, but they are hired out for World Strides. So to me, they are worth every penny that we pay for World Strides. And if you don't believe me, ask the kids. Here's a little feedback from the kids on Tyrone and Mike from last year. It was real quick. How'd you feel about these guys? He's the man. He did a nice job. Don't have him again. Getting 98% or 96% or whatever it is of kids to agree he's the man, that's all I need. So that's a little bit about why we go with World Strides. Hope that clears up any information for you. If you have any other questions, let me know. But now I'd like to go to the itinerary. This form, or this handout, as well as all of the handouts that you need that I would give in our meeting at Mellows, is available on my USM on the 8th grade bulletin board. I'm also going to have hard copies of all these for you guys that I can send home with your kids, so that you don't have to print them out and use all your ink at home. We can use our USM ink. But I'd like to go through the itinerary. This is the preliminary itinerary of the big 4.5-day History Palooza. There's always a little subject to change here. Never know what's going to happen. I won't mention the word shutdown, but I brought it up anyways. But World Strides has already contacted me about what they're doing with the shutdown right now. They have tours going right now. They are on top of everything. I'm confident that we're not going to have to worry about that. But if there is an issue with something not being open, we're going to be taking care of that. I can promise you. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, but I did want to do it this year as a little bit of a Where's My USM Kid, kind of like a Where's Waldo. I tried to go through and find some familiar faces to many of you that hopefully you will be able to pick out and recognize. And I'm going to go fast, but as your kids will tell you when we get back from DC, I like to take pictures when we're in DC. So hopefully you'll see some former DC tourists as we go through. All righty. So here we go with sort of the plan for DC 2019. On Monday, April 29th, 2019, we are going to meet at USM. We're going to put all of our luggage in the American Studies rooms like that. We're going to pack them in, and we're going to head out to MKE, and we will fly out of Mitchell to either Baltimore or Washington, D.C. We leave from school together. I really prefer leaving from school together instead of being dropped off at the airport. Part of it is a little control for me. Part of it is just kind of bringing everybody together and going as one big group. We'll talk about flights in a little while, but we don't do any touring that day. We just kind of fly out. Typically, we've gone on 1 or 2 flights. And we've been very, very fortunate through World Strides lately that we are flying direct either to Baltimore or to Washington, D.C. So Monday, April 29th, that's our departure day, our D-Day. We'll get into our hotel. And then Tuesday, April 30th comes around. This is when we start touring. This is usually our biggest tour day. We like to tire them out, keep them busy. You know what they say about idle hands, right? So we're going to start that day probably with the National Museum of American History. Great place to start. I'm a little biased, right? This museum has it's been redone. If you haven't been in DC since your 8th grade trip, maybe they've changed a lot. They've added a lot. Obviously, the centerpiece is the actual Star Spangled Banner, the flag that was still there during the War of 1812. They have it secluded in the back of that exhibit right there. It's really, really cool from far away there. There are incredible exhibits about the First Ladies, about America's Price of Freedom. They have an awesome exhibit called The Glorious Burden about the presidency. They do like reenactments here and there. Here we have a reenactment of the Greensboro for the lunch counter protest in 1960 for the Civil Rights Movement. And the cool thing is you can already see that the first thing we do, we hit there and we're hitting our curriculum. We're bringing our American Studies curriculum to life. Awesome Price of Freedom here. I love, if I could just teach the Vietnam conflict in this room, I'd be a happy man. The kids kind of love it. From there, we'll stroll up to the National Gallery of Art, which has both classical art and modern art. You can guess which building was classical and which building was modern. I always challenge the kids to go in there and find their favorite piece of art, and then they're going to come back and report it back to me. There's everything from paintings to sculpture to great Calder, mobiles. And it's also a great place to take a group picture, of course. And it's also a great place for Jason Strange to show off how awesome he is. I do like that. We have a noon appointment that day at the United States Capitol. That is still open right now, even through the shutdown, so that's kind of cool. In 2 of the last 4 years, we have been incredibly fortunate to go to the Capitol and meet both of our Wisconsin senators. And it's awesome for me because I can say, folks, this is, to the kids, this is the political spectrum of Democratic and Republican, conservative and liberal. It's really, really neat to see our 2 senators speak together, and it brings up some great discussions about bipartisanism, being bipartisan. And also kids just love meeting the senators and asking them what they do, and they talk about what they feel is the direction of the country and how they're always fighting for Wisconsin. So that's kind of fun. One time we met another guy. This was many, many moons ago, but this guy right in the center here, you may recognize him from the front a little better. That was Senator Barack Obama. He later had a different job, but it's kind of cool who we run into there. We then will tour the Capitol building. Always a great time. This is one of my favorite things, walking with kids into the rotunda for the first time, seeing that amazing, I consider the entire place an amazing work of art. But how it has the pictures and the statues and the frieze and the apotheosis of George Washington. Just kind of tells America's story. Just super, super, super cool. We're going to, if you haven't been to the Capitol in a while, they now have all guided tours by our redcoats right there, not the British, but gentlemen on the right there. And they talk through those cool earphones so everybody can hear. It's really neat. Kids love to take the pictures. I mean, the open mouth the gaping mouth is like, wow, this is super cool. I love that. And we get to see one of our 2 statues from Wisconsin fighting Bob La Follette, and always take some nice pictures with the Capitol Dome behind us. We'll walk over to the Library of Congress. Actually, lately we've been walking underground to the Library of Congress. They don't make buildings like this anymore. This place is incredible. Take a look at the overall reading room. We don't get to go in there, but we get to look at the incredible architecture, and they've got some neat exhibits in there. They've got Jefferson's Library. I don't take pictures of that because we're not supposed to, but it's a really, really cool place. We head back over up to the U.S. Supreme Court. We haven't gone in the Supreme Court lately because it's almost impossible to keep a group of 88 eighth graders silent. Perhaps you're not surprised. But we always like to get a picture there. That afternoon, we're going to head to Ford's Theater. We did a little reenactment of what happened in Ford's Theater in April of 1865. So students are going to be at the real place, which is kind of cool. Waiting in line is always a good time for limbo. But when we go to Ford's Theater, they can talk to people at the time, which is kind of neat. They can hang out with Lewis Powell, who Dr. Walzak has a big crush on. Seriously, you can ask her. Check out this former historian. I think hopefully somebody's watching this guy right here. They can see the actual gun and the bullet from the assassination of Abe Lincoln. And then we sit in Ford's Theater and we get a National Park Service Ranger talk about the events of April 14th and 15th, 1865. And you can see this right here. That is the presidential box right up top here by my good friend, my young historian. It's just really, one of the things I always tell kids is that if you want to learn about history, you got to walk in the footsteps of history. And here we are. We'll go for dinner. Actually, we won't go for dinner that night because we're going to do dinner after this little activity. We'll then go to 3 really cool memorials on the tidal basin. We got the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. We observed his birthday and his greatness on Monday. It's a beautiful memorial with quotes and statues, or not statues, a sculpture, I should say, right there. It's pretty cool to get the entire class in front of that. Beautiful on the tidal basin as well. You can see in the background there, we've got the Jefferson Memorial over there. We'll end our walk from MLK to there. We'll then stroll over to the FDR Memorial to honor our 32nd president. We spent a lot of time talking about FDR when it comes to the Great Depression and his leadership during World War II. If you haven't been to the FDR Memorial, it's a different type of memorial. It's got a lot of sculpture that talks a lot about history. Look at this old historian right there. What do you know? These people are in college right now. Here we have somebody listening to a fireside chat. They have statues of people waiting in line for a soup kitchen. There's a lot of symbolism in the waterfalls and the rocks that are broken up here. The division of the world with I Hate War in the World War II era. That waterfall back there is supposed to be for the Tennessee Valley Authority during the Great Depression. Everything's symbolic. It's got a little thing for Eleanor Roosevelt as well. And young historians kind of getting a little crazy by the waterfalls. Kids love this one because it's just so different. And it kind of appeals to all the senses. It's really neat. You can feel it. You can actually smell it because of some of the flowers. You can definitely hear it. You can see. I don't know if we're really tasting anything. We're not there yet, but then we'll finish up that little stroll with the Jefferson Memorial, the homage to our third president, and more importantly, our author of our Declaration of Independence, which you can see inscribed on the inside of the memorial right there. It's kids will run up there, talk to Thomas, see how he's doing, get some good views. It's usually a little windy up there, which is kind of fun. From there, we're going to hop in the bus and we are going to go to, the plan is, a Washington Nationals game. We haven't been able to in the last year, 2 years, I think, because they've been out of town, but they are in town. They're playing the St. Louis Cardinals. We will go to Nationals Park, which is pretty cool. We sit as one big group, as you can imagine. Typically out in right field. A couple years ago, we saw Albert Pujols hit his 600th home run. At least most people did. I was getting garlic fries at that time. A little disappointed as a baseball fan. But it's a great time. Kids enjoy it. We're eating dinner there. They get to relax a little bit, have some fun, watch a little baseball. We usually don't stay till the very end because it gets a little late. But we also get to see, instead of the racing sausages, you probably, if you're a baseball fan, you know this, they have the racing presidents, including that big guy. There are two really big head Tafts there. Here's one big-headed Taft, and then here's the other. The only Taft I've ever seen who's got a bigger size cranium than me. That's going to be our first day. Yeah, can you believe that? We'll head back to the hotel. That's one day of touring in D.C. Like I say, we keep them busy, kind of tire them out. They hop into bed, and then we get them up the next morning for May 1st, May Day. Maybe I'll teach them the May Day traditions I had when I was a little boy, and I used to leave candy on people's doors and knock on it and run away. I don't know, maybe not. But anyways, a couple things I'll mention here is about wardrobe. You will see on the packing list that the Lions and Tigers wardrobe, that should be required in my mind. Of course, I'm joking, but Reed here, he kind of took it all in. But if you take a look at the wardrobe, you'll see that there's everything from shorts and t-shirts to cold North Face and jeans. So we try to make sure that we look at the weather forecast ahead of time. We pack for the weather, and of course, Mr. Strains gets to wear a variety of different t-shirts because sometimes kids give him a t-shirt. That Wednesday morning, our plan is to start at the White House. Typically, we don't go in the White House because of the time constraints and the difficulty of getting in there. But I'm not ruling it out this year because we're not going to Gettysburg just to do some different stuff, and so that might open up a little bit of time. So I emailed our senator to try to get us into the White House. So we'll see what happens. But we definitely go to the White House. We take pictures of the White House, in front of the White House. We walk around. Take a look at Lafayette Square across the street. Kids like to talk to the protesters. It's it's an iconic place. Everybody loves getting their picture taken there. That morning, we will then go to the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum. I love it because it is both a memorial and a museum. It's a place like no other. It really is. Our students go through this museum they're just engrossed. They take it all in. They soak it all in. I really credit Hannah Reimer in 7th grade for setting the stage for the success of this. The Holocaust Memorial Museum always ranks as one of the 3 top places we go to by our students in our end of trip survey. If you haven't been there, it's really hard to describe. It's the best teaching museum I can think of when it comes to this incredibly dark part of human history. And again, our kids take it with maturity, and they ask questions. I have them go in there with a question and come out and they talk about it. It's great to see kids learning in this trip as well as having fun. And this is one of the highlights of the learning. At the very, very close of the museum, there's a beautiful memorial, a little silent memorial. Some kids will move through the museum quickly due to the way that they feel emotionally about it. Others, we got to drag them out, but it's really a great experience for them. We'll hit some lunch that day, and then we'll go to the Museum of African American History and Culture. This will be our 3rd trip to this museum. We've been privileged to see it the first 2 years that we've been there since it's been open, and this place is just overwhelming. Last year we were in it for and we were going to be in it for an hour and 20 minutes, and then kids came to me and said, Mr. Taft, we need more time. So I kind of shuffled things around. We were in there for almost an hour and 50 minutes, and then it still wasn't enough time. If you can ever get to this place, it's incredible. It's really cool too because when we go to DC, a lot of our National History Day projects come back and visit us. A couple of these guys did the 1968 Olympic protest with their NHT project. The African American History Museum is just powerful. It tells the entire story of the African American experience before it was even America. It's got an amazing area of reflection and thought. I can't say enough about this museum. And you know, if I was going with my buddies to DC right now, we probably wouldn't be able to get into this museum. But going on a DC trip, we are able to do so. We'll head over to the National Archives then. The National Archives are the repository of all of our great primary source documents. A lot of our kids have dug into the archives for the NHT project. We get to walk into the rotunda with the Charters of Freedom. Here we have the Declaration of Independence. They read it. Here we have the Constitution. They read it. Here we have the Bill of Rights. They read it, and they're guarded with people with guns. They don't even let air touch it. And they go into a vault 30 feet into the ground in the night. That's how important these documents are, and our kids get to go see them. How cool is that? Plus, they know all about them, which is kind of neat. Archives is always a fun spot. We might go at that time. We might try to hit at a different time, but we hit those archives. We got to go see those if we're in DC. We'll go to dinner on Wednesday night, and then it's our memorial walk. We do the four major memorials on the western part of the wall or the mall. We start with the World War II memorial. We're going to be just talking about World War II at that time. It's a beautiful memorial with an Atlantic arch, a Pacific arch. It's got a field of 4,000 gold stars, one for every 100 Americans who lost their life in the World War II. Beautiful fountains, a pillar for each state, including the great state of Wisconsin. All right. Awesome at night. It's just a great place to be. From there, we'll walk down to the Lincoln Memorial, which is at the end of the reflecting pool. We'll go see our 16th president, Abe, there. I talked about it in class the other day, that kids get to put their foot, talk about walking in the footsteps of history. You get to put your foot where Martin Luther King Jr. spoke those four incredible words in 1963, in August. And then we get to go in and hang out with Abe a little bit. We go around the back to see look over Arlington National Cemetery, read his speeches that they've actually read already as well. And it's a great meeting place. We head over to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. If you haven't been there, it's overwhelming. 58,000 plus names of men and women who paid the ultimate price in serving the United States in that difficult conflict in Vietnam. One of the highlights is going to see the nurses statue by Glenda Goodacre. But really, one of the biggest things is on panel 13W, line 41, I believe, is the name Jack Smith right here in the middle. Jack Smith was a 1968 graduate of University School of Milwaukee, and he is sort of the central figure that Lori Walczak and I use when we talk about the Vietnam conflict. Last place we visit that evening is the Korean War Veterans Memorial. It has 19 larger-than-life-size statues walking in a supposed rice paddy. They have their harsh weather gear on. They are reflected in the wall behind them to make 38 statues, which is symbolic of the 38th parallel in which the Korean War was fought. These guys are great to see, especially at night. There's a little ghostly feel for them. It's a powerful place, and it ends that night by every student seeing these four very important words: freedom is not free. That's one of the I think that's sort of the theme of that evening. How we celebrate the people that have served, but also realize that all of that service and our freedom does come with an ultimate cost. That is our Wednesday. All right, so we're halfway done. Can you believe it? Now it's Thursday, May 2nd. Here's our plan. We'll start by talking a little bit about food in DC. We in the hotels that we stay at, we eat breakfast at the hotels. Sometimes we might take one breakfast out, but we eat at the hotels. Typical hotel buffet breakfast, where it always has a pancakes or French toast or waffles. It'll have bacon, sausage, scrambled eggs, fresh fruit, juice, cereal, pastries, all that good stuff. All right. I'm just always going for the bacon. Lunches we'll eat at some restaurants. Here we have some guys hanging out at the Hard Rock right there. There's some Where's Waldo's in there. And it's also a great thing to have kids to come to the restaurants, because we always get great compliments on how our kids behave at the restaurant. We have one sit-down dinner. That sit-down dinner will take place that Wednesday night, more than likely. It depends on all on where we are in our schedule. Sometimes it's Italian. Here we are at Pizzeria Uno at Union Station. Also, a lot of people wonder about bringing money. All of the meals are paid for. All the admissions are paid for. The only money that anybody really needs is if they want to get a side soda or something like that, or if they want to buy stuff that turns your tongue blue, or if they want to buy a pretty cool Hard Rock Cafe sweatshirt, or if they want to try to purchase the World's Worst Souvenir, where we get a lot of contenders every year. Like on the bottom right there, the penny that actually costs $7.99 and it isn't worth anything. Or of course, sunglasses with mustaches on them. Never really got that. But anyways, now it's Thursday morning. We'll start that morning hopefully at the United States Air Force Memorial. It's a newer memorial if you haven't been to DC in about 10 years. Super, super cool. Those are the three entrails of flying tails or whatever of jets taking off. It's got a cool statues of 4 Air Force service people, because it does include a female, which is I'm glad that the Air Force Memorial did that. From there, we'll walk to the Pentagon Memorial, which honors the 184 people that lost their life in that terrorist attack on September 11th, 1990. Kids really, really appreciate this memorial, in part because of the style of it, but also just the emotional impact of it. It has a bench for every one of the 184 people that perished, including the youngest child, who was the age of 3, I believe, and the oldest person was in his 70s. It's very reflective, very, very powerful. It's a great place to go. From there, we'll hike out to Dulles Airport, near Dulles Airport, for the newer National Air and Space Museum, the Udvar-Hazy National Air and Space Museum. If it flies, it's in there. And when I mean it's in there, like the whole thing is in there. You got right there, I'm looking at a Blackbird. I'm looking at the Enola Gay. The Concorde is in the back. Seriously, it's got some amazing stuff here. It's a museum that has turned out to be one of the favorites. It's got a space shuttle that's been into space. Come on, how about that? There's the Enola Gay right there. We debate that. We've got a couple NHD projects about that every year. It's got some simulators. Look at this old historian right there. Holy smokes. It's got some simulators, flight simulators that kids love to go in. So does Dr. Walzak. Sorry to saw that one. And you can take a cool picture. Look at this one right there. There's a SIB. Take some fun pictures and maybe buy a really small space helmet. We'll probably eat lunch there. And then we've got some openings here. We might head back to DC to do the Washington National Zoo. You can't go to the zoo without going to see the pandas. Those pandas are great. And of course, learning about panda poop, which is the Wonder Dog. But the other plan is, I'm sorry, we're not going to see the Washington Monument in action. We're not going to be able to go up the Washington Monument because it's still closed because of earthquakes and safety. But we'll go take a look at it, get some pictures by it. You can't miss it. It's the biggest thing in Washington, D.C. But then we're going to head out to Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon, home of George Washington. We haven't been there in the last 4 or 5 years, so just trying to mix things up a little bit. They've added some kind of new stuff to Mount Vernon, if you can believe it, in their visitor center. It's really cool to see the actual tomb of George Washington and his wife, Martha. They're both entombed on the premises. But also, they've got a really awesome museum that has a ton of interactive stuff, and they just included a interactive you decide sort of thing. It's called It's Your Turn to Lead, where kids can get in there and determine, try to make decisions based on what George Washington would do. So kind of super cool. Then we'll go back to the hotel. We'll get gussied up, and we will go on the Potomac River sightseeing cruise. I leave from Alexandria on King Street to get on the Miss Kristen. This is my home away from home, it seems. You'll see that some kids get a little dressed up. Some kids go super formal. Some will, kind of just be normal. We've got a dinner there, usually a taco bar with some salad and some cookies. And it's a great time for the kids to just not think about any historical stuff at all and just have fun on their last little soiree of the trip. It's a dance, DJ, good times. I think it's called dancing. I'm not really sure. I think they determined it as dancing. I'll let you guys be the judge real quick here. I call it jumping. But it is a great time. The kids enjoy it. It's one of those times where I know that they're not going to get in trouble, because the biggest trouble they could get in would involve like the Port Authority, and I'm not worried about that happening at all. So singing, dancing, good times, big smiles. How can you beat it, right? That brings us to Friday, May 3rd, 2019. By far my favorite day of the entire trip. And it's not because it's the last day. It's because after checking out of the hotel, we go to my favorite place in Washington, D.C., which is Arlington National Cemetery. Over 260,000 people who have served or are linked to people who have served. It's their final resting place. It is a place like no other. And I think the kids really, really get a lot out of their visit to Arlington. We last year, for the first time, and it will not be the last, we're going there again. We went to the women in the Women's Memorial, Military Memorial, which has a great exhibits inside of it. We go see the graves of two presidents, one that's overlooked. I don't know how he could be because he was so big, but William Howard Taft, our 27th president of the United States. And then we go to see John F. Kennedy's grave. What was he, 32, 33, 34? 34th president? 34th president. No, 35th president. There's his eternal flame right there. Students know about Kennedy, and the story about why he's buried there is fantastic to tell. We go north, or we go above that. We go uphill. We head to the Lee Mansion, which overlooks all of Washington, D.C. there. Always a beautiful view. You'll notice here that the weather was a little better, don't you think? Also, you'll notice that day at Arlington National Cemetery that we kind of ask our kids to dress up a little bit. Typically the girls wear a dress or a skirt, and the guys will wear a collared shirt. That day was pretty warm, so we had them wear shorts, of course. You will also notice that they are wearing tennis shoes. That is a necessity. Always tennis shoes. The most important thing we do, though, in Washington, D.C. is we then go to the Memorial Amphitheater, where my good friend Tyrone Brown, over here on the right, he will address the students and talk about the tomb of the unknown soldier and the first unknown soldier from World War I. He tells a story like nobody else. He does it with such grace and dignity, and the kids learn about the importance of this place right here. And then the moment of moments is that 4 students chosen by their classmates have what I consider to be the best honor of the year, and that is the opportunity to place a wreath in front of the tomb of the unknown soldier. I tell the kids that this is not something that anybody can just come up and do. It's like I can't just go, hey, I want to go and play and lay a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. It doesn't happen that way. And these 4 kids represent University School at a very, very solemn place. And that's usually when my allergies act up and I get a little, sniffly, and, that kind of stuff happens in the spring in Washington, D.C. But Arlington is an amazing place. From there, we hop over to the Marine Corps Memorial, which is also, of course, many people know as Iwo Jima. Sometimes there's actually a Marine Corps dress service there, which is kind of cool. We saw that a couple years ago. We'll hit some lunch, and then our final stop will be the museum. The museum is dedicated to the First Amendment, the freedom of the press, and the news. Super interactive place. You can do a newscast if you want to. It's got an awesome upper deck which overlooks the Washington, D.C. Here we have the that's the National Gallery of Art right there on one side. You can see the Capitol building over there with two fine, familiar young historians right by the Canadian Embassy. It's got a complete section of the Berlin Wall, headlines from all newspapers. These are the headlines of newspapers from 9/11. It's got an actual part of the 9/11 from one of the towers, one of the Radiocon towers from the World Trade Center. It has the armband worn by Mary Beth Tinker in 1968 or 65, I think, when she was protesting the Vietnam War, and her Supreme Court case that we looked at, Tinker versus Des Moines in 1969. And Mary Beth Tinker is coming to my social studies conference in March. Just wanted to put a plug there. It's kind of cool. But it's got that actual armband. It has Pulitzer Prize winning photos. It's just an awesome, awesome, awesome place. Great place for us to end. We hop into the bus. We head to whichever airport we're leaving from, and then it's home to Milwaukee, to all of our smiling families' faces as they greet us at the airport. Woo! That is our itinerary. How about that? You can leave a comment. Are you as tired as I am already just thinking about that? Huh? All right. So we've done our some of the ins and outs. We've done the itinerary. Now it is time for sort of the frequently asked questions. Okay. I'm going to ask these questions and answer these questions. And then if you have questions at the end, please let me know. But hopefully this will answer some of the big ones that you might be wondering about or concerned about. The first one is, what are your requirements as a parent? That's why this is, of course, a parent meeting. Number one, it's to either pay or help pay for this trip, which you're doing a fine job on. Francine is, thanks to Francine's hard work on that. But the other one is you've got some forms that, again, are available online, and I will print them out as well and have them available. If you just want to pick them up at conferences, that's okay. I will tell you that the form on the left, the USM form right here, this is not a form. It's about 14 pages long. It's going to have a different title on it because this is from last year, but it's pretty long, and it's an important form for you to fill in. It's got a lot of stuff, especially the health information on it, and I'm going to be sending you some information from Kathleen Rober, definitely about health and about making sure that you are updated with all of like your Magnus thing and stuff like that. Okay. The form on the right is only one piece of paper, both sides. That's for World Strides, and that's just on their end. It's a emergency medical release on one side, and then on the back it is the behavior contract that you and your historical tourist are going to sign. So if I can get those back by March 15th, which is the Friday before spring break, that would be great. But again, you can print them out and do them, or you can let me print them out for you. I'll gladly do that. Okay. So that's really your big requirement. The last big requirement, or the couple other big requirements, helping your student pack and making sure you pick up your student or your tourist at Mitchell Airport on time. All right. Next question. How are roommates determined? This is very important for a lot of people and a lot of kids. What we do is we have students write down 6 names on an index card. From those 6 names, the roommates will be created. And the rooms are 4s and 3s, all depending on numbers. Now, I do the boys' rooms, and Mrs. E, Francine, does the girls' rooms. And we promise, and it's a promise, and we hold to it, that everybody will get at least one of their choices that is on their card. We don't have the kids rank them. We can't have the kids rank them. We just would take one of they will guarantee to get one of those 6. So they will be in a room with somebody that they obviously feel comfortable with. I can tell you personally, what I also try to do is make sure that they are in a room with somebody that has chosen them, so that it's both they're with somebody who really wants to room with them and somebody that they want to room with. And it usually works out really, really, really well. However, you know your students, you know there might be some back history or whatever and things like that. So what I do is I ask for you to send to me confidentially via email, confidentially, any specific student that would be a concern. I'm not asking you to say who you want your student to room with. I'm asking you to say if there is sort of like a red flag relationship that you just don't think would be really, really good. And it could be your daughter or son's best friend, but they come over for slumber parties or sleepovers, whatever, and they don't sleep. So that's how the roommates are determined. We do not publicize the roommates until about 3 weeks or 2 weeks before we leave, just to so that festering relationships don't become problems. Okay, and once the roommates are the rooms are published, we keep them that way. And we've been asked to move rooms after they've been published, and we keep them the way they are. Okay, so look for that email. Just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. I will tell you that the kids travel with their roommates, but they're not in their rooms a ton. But they travel with their roommates in the same bus. But once they're off the bus, they can kind of go with whoever they want. But the rooms are how we do our chaperone numbers too, and how we like take attendance. Okay. What should my historical tourist pack? Well, I've got a little document for you, clothing for the Washington trip. If you've had a former historical tourist, it hasn't changed very much. A couple of highlights I would put on there. For God's sakes, please have them pack deodorant. And even better than that, teach them how to use it. I got some smellies, around this time. The weather is usually a couple weeks or maybe a month ahead of us in Wisconsin, which doesn't really mean anything because our weather changes, every 10 minutes. But it's usually going to be a little warmer. We're going a week later than we typically go, so we're going that last week of April, first week of May time. It's going to be, but they're going to need to have a jacket. Big thing too, again, is they need those tennis shoes that they can use to. Because we walk and walk and walk. We put on 20,000 steps a day, and you don't want to do it in flats. You don't want to do it in flip flops or anything like that. You want to do it in tennis shoes, in comfy tennis shoes, and ones that have been broken in. So you can take a look at that, but of course we don't have to worry about that until April or May. Where are we staying? I'll tell you that we don't know where we're staying, and we don't know our flights until usually mid to at the end of February. I am told the hotel, and once I know the hotel, I send it all right out to you. I will tell you that one of the reasons our price is a little higher than maybe you could see on other trips is that we stay within the close proximity of Washington, D.C. We don't stay like out on the Beltway. A long time ago, even that sick trip, we stayed out on the Beltway. And there were a couple times where it took us an hour to an hour and a half to get back into DC to tour. I like to say that your kids are there not to sit on the bus in traffic. So we stay in closer proximity to DC. Hotels do tend to be a little more expensive, but it's worth every penny. Same thing with the flights. We won't know those until February. World Strides is brokering with those flights right now with airlines. We have been fortunate to fly on Southwest the last couple of years, which is good for the kids. They like it because they don't get assigned seats. But we do fly out of Milwaukee. If there is a way to get them all on one plane, that would be fantastic. But this is the one thing that is 100% completely out of my hands, because I do not work for the airlines. So we kind of take what they give us. But we're typically on 2 flights. Last year we were fortunate. We were on 2 flights out and 1 flight back. The flights leave near the same time when they're split, but one will arrive in Baltimore and one will arrive in Washington, D.C., and then we meet at the hotel. What will my historical tourist eat? We have, as I mentioned, everything is included. Breakfast is included. Lunch, we usually eat at food courts for lunch because it's almost impossible to do a sit-down lunch in our time schedule and also for the size of our group. And then at dinner on Monday night, dinner will be at the airport. Tuesday night dinner will be at the baseball game. Wednesday night dinner will be at a restaurant. Thursday night dinner will be at Thursday night dinner will be on the boat. And then Friday night dinner, depending on when we leave our flight, will either be at a restaurant or at a food court in the airport. So your historical tourist eats pretty much what they choose to eat. And that's where a little parental guidance will help them as well. When we go to Pentagon City Mall for a lunch, Cinnabon is not a good lunch. Haagen-Dazs is not a good lunch. They need something maybe a little more substantial than that, I think. We encourage salads. We encourage, I'd like you to encourage salads. There's places where they can get smoothies sometimes. But, that's one of the things where you can really talk to your kids. We talk to them very frequently about the most important thing they can do on this entire trip is the issue of respect. And one of those things is to respect their own body. So what they eat is pretty much on their own. Anybody with allergies, food allergies, we are aware of those. If it is a sit-down meal, we will have a different menu item for them, or we'll have them go in there, order off the menu, and then we'll just take care of it. That's obviously something that we take very, very seriously on the trip. Therefore, can kids pack snacks? Absolutely. Healthy-ish snacks, not unhealthy-ish snacks. Healthy-ish snacks, which I feel are Pringles. But we are asking, very, very much asking, please, no nut products for snacks. I know it's very, very hard, especially when it comes to protein bars or trail mix or things like that. But we want to respect everybody on the trip. So therefore, we're asking for no nut products. Can kids bring cell phones? Absolutely. We need them to bring cell phones. I don't know how we did this trip without them bringing cell phones. We also Lori and I use the cell phones to give them information about where they are. They have like 4 or 5 slides on their cell phone of every place we go that tells them what to look out for. And it also has like a little reflection part to it that they kind of type in. We do a goose chase. Scavenger hunt using the cell phones. So yes, they need to bring their cell phones. Also, the cell phone for all of them is their camera, right? However, we also tell them, and you can encourage them, they're not there to sit on their cell phone the whole time. And sometimes we say, sit on your cell phone, not like look at it, but actually sit on it, put it under your leg and get your hands up while somebody is talking or while we are touring. So yes, cell phones are important, but we want to make sure that they're using them in the right way. And my historical tourists go see Aunt Valerie. Everybody's got a friend in Washington, D.C. Everybody's got family around there. We can't have our kids splitting up and going 9 different ways. Aunt Valerie can come see us, especially on Wednesday night when we do the monuments. We always have visitors coming to see us when we do the monuments. Always. If somebody's going to the baseball game on that Tuesday night, they can come see us, but we can't have our kids split apart. The way that we got to think about it is it's almost impossible to treat this trip as 89 individual trips. It's one trip for everybody, and it's the only way that we can keep it manageable and really safe, which is really what's important to us. So if you do have family there and they want to check in with your historical tourists, they're going to have to come our way. I hope you understand and appreciate that. How much money should I send with my child? The typical number I think is about $30, $40, $50. They want to get a souvenir for you, of course. They want to get a souvenir for themselves. Probably want to get a soda here and there, maybe an ice cream, but they're not going to go breaking the bank. I always tell them, if you're going to buy anything, buy something that you can't buy at home. Like if we're at a food court in the mall and they have about 20 minutes, don't go to the Gap and buy a t-shirt. You can get that at Bayshore until the Gap closes at Bayshore, which is coming up, I'm sure. But that's typically the number. Between $30 and $50 should be fine. So what happens if a wildcat other than mine gets into big trouble? This rarely happens. In fact, you'll hear reports after the trip about how great these kids are. And we know they're going to be great. And a lot of that is because of what happens at home. I think I'm the only teacher who I give a test and kids say thank you when I've handed out. Come on, who does that? These are good kids or polite kids, but they're also kids. So if somebody gets into a little trouble, and mostly it's to be an issue of not respecting people, or not respecting time, which is a big thing for me, they might get the dubious honor of being my shadow, which means that they got to stick with me for a little while. Not the way they probably want to spend their DC trip, right? If it gets any worse than that, then there might be some other circumstances and maybe even contact home. But I'm going to tell you that I've been on this trip. This is going to be my 21st trip. I did miss one, so 21st trip. And that contact home has happened, I think, I think I can count it on one hand, and I'd still have a couple fingers left over. So, we're not too worried about that. We've got good kids. Most importantly, and this is my last one. Whew, boy. Oh, and I'm a little over time here, but why is my young historian going on this trip? To me, it's real simple. Number one, it's the American Studies curriculum. It brings everything to life. I look at it as validating my job and what I do, and why Lori and I have put American Studies together, and why we feel that it's important for us to learn about the story of this country. The pros and cons, the goods and bads, the glory and the challenges. But it brings everything to life, and it's walking in the footsteps of history. It's the best way to learn, in my mind. And so this is a curricular trip. We look at it as curriculum. There are no worksheets on the trip. There is no test at the end of the trip. I don't believe in that. But we do ask the kids to go in there to learn and ask questions, and take it for this incredible opportunity that they've been given by their school and by their parents. Second reason is these kids work hard. Some harder than others, but they all work hard, harder than most. And I look at it as somewhat of a reward for a good year of working hard, and a culmination of their 4 years, or 3 or 2 or 1, but whatever it is, it's a culmination of their time at university school and the middle school. This is the last time that these kids are going to be all together at once in this one kind of big time, this one kind of big environment. Then there's commencement, and then boom, baby, they're gone. So maybe going different ways. And when they get to the upper school, they kind of go different ways sometimes with their different friend groups and niches. So I look at it as curricular, but also social and well-deserved. So I always like to end with this. These are our scales from last year on our trip. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the 2018 USMDC trip? I think those numbers kind of pretty good. We've got well over 50%, almost 75%, at least 3/4 of the kids gave it a 9 or a 10. I'll take that from 8th graders. I'm okay with that. That's great. All right. And then, did it meet, or surpass your expectations? If over 60% of the kids said that it surpassed their expectations on how cool it was, I'm good. All right. So that's an overview for all of you. I hope that it worked out. I hope that you could hear me and didn't get too bored. Now you know what your kids got to deal with every other day. I've got some time for some quick questions if you have any. In general, I'll take questions for a couple minutes. I had hoped to be done a little earlier, but usually I'm on for an hour. I said 45 minutes, but of course I like to babble. So if you have any sort of general question that you want available to everybody, go ahead and pop it in there, and I'll stick around for a couple minutes. If not, and if it's a specific question you want to ask me, go ahead and feel free and do that individually by any means. But if you're taking off right now, before asking any questions, or if you're not going to ask any questions, thanks for your time. Thanks for your supporting this trip. Obviously, hopefully you can feel that we have a little passion for it on our end from our curriculum, and all the teachers love going, or they wouldn't go. But it's a great time. So thanks for your time and attention. If you have any questions, kind of pop them in there, and that's about it. I'm not seeing any questions yet, which is fine because, like I said, I try to answer all the questions before they're asked. So I'll stick on for a little while longer. But again, thanks to all of you. Just a reminder that we have a big night 2 weeks from tomorrow. We've got our big NHD showcase. It's going to be awesome. You're going to be blown away with it. I'll have some of those forms that I was talking about. I'll make sure those get printed out. Hopefully get them out to kids by Friday. Take a look at the MyUSM for anything that you need. This should be recorded in case you really want to watch it again. I don't know why you would. But overall, thanks again for participating, and I'll see you all later. Okay? I'll stick around for anybody who wants to stick around. Mr. Frick, that's a good question. How many chaperones go on the trip? We have 7 teacher chaperones, and then we have 6 parents that are joining us as well, which brings us a total of 13 adults. The numbers are those numbers combined with the number of kids are going to put us right around 100, which is a pretty decent number. It's kind of big, but it's a decent number. The bigger we get, the more challenges we have with buses and airlines, obviously, as you can think, and also get into some certain venues when it comes to food. But so 13 total adults will be on the trip. Mrs. T, it is totally okay if your child does not bring a cell phone. They might say, hey, mom, dad, I need a cell phone for Washington, D.C. That is not necessary because they're going to be with somebody who has a cell phone, guaranteed. So cell phone, it's better that they have access with somebody with a cell phone. Nobody ever missed anything because they did not have a cell phone. And by the way, students are always with somebody. There's no wandering alone. They always have a DC buddy. We don't let them go to, even in the airport. If they want to run off to the bathroom, we want them to go with somebody. If they're at the baseball game, we want them to go with somebody. That's just, that's just more common sense on our part. All right, folks, if there are no further questions, I'm going to head out and make an awesome Dawes Act lesson plan for tomorrow. But again, thanks for your time. Thanks for your support. I really, really, really appreciate it coming from the one of the co-leaders of the trip. If you have any questions, again, contact me, and you'll get obviously much, much, much more information, especially about medication and things like that. But we'll see you all in a couple weeks. Have a great evening. Stay warm and stay out of the snow. And hopefully this format worked out for everybody. I appreciate that we were able to do it. So take care.